Alright, hey guys, Pax here. Welcome back to another Pokemon Pocket video. In this video, we're going to be going over non-EX Gyarados / Suicune EX deck. Yes, the atrocious Pokemon himself, Gyarados. That's essentially what he is in this game. However, this deck did make Gyarados work, specifically this non-EX Gyarados. Has 130 HP, stage 1 of course. Has 1 attack, Wild Swing. Does 20 base damage. When attacking, you may discard any number of bench water Pokemon. This attack does 40 more damage for each bench Pokemon you discard this way. In other words, this Pokemon can do a max damage of 150. So a lot of potential, especially for a non-EX. This Gyarados did come out in Wisdom of Sea and Sky, so rather old at this point. And yeah, this is a deck right here. I'll also show it towards the end of the video. But if you guys are curious, this deck was actually made by Making. They have props to Making for making this deck. Making actually got to 5th place in the Pocket Regional Tournament. Got 10 wins, lost 1 time, and tied 4 times. So this is a very peculiar deck, but nevertheless, it does seem to work. If you guys are curious, this deck actually tied against a Suicune Greninja deck. So, very interesting to see. But yeah, if this is your first video on my channel, really do consider if you like and subscribe. Really does help me out, especially as a small-time content creator. And without further ado, let's get right into the deck showcase. All right, here we are in our first battle. We are going second. We are also going against the Mega Gyarados EX solo deck. And again, if you guys are new to my deck showcases, how these deck showcases usually go, I usually do 3 battles. First battle is a solo battle just to get the feel for a deck, and the next 2 will be in PvP. Okay, so looking at this, Manaphy is amazing, just for early game pretty much, just like kind of feed your Pokemon, especially feeding more than 1. At this point, it's gonna do this, and all right. So ideally for this deck, you can be super fast paced, especially if you're going first, especially with Mantike and Magikarp, because if you can get Gyarados out your second turn, going first with Mantike buffing the energy, you can do 140 damage just like that, your second turn. So a lot of potential, but this is not too bad. So opponent is getting rather unlucky. Just has Mantike on the field. That's pretty rough, but nevertheless, again, the first battle for these videos, they aren't really meant to be that hard, just to get the feel for a deck. But look at this. So I do use Manaphy right here, Oceana Gift, feeding Suicune and Magikarp. So next turn I can either sub into Suicune EX or Magikarp. You love to see this. This is going to be a very fun video, but opponent, his Mantike's here, but his family didn't show up. They're like, they abandoned him. He's like, it's like Home Alone, but we're going to massacre this innocent baby. All right, so look at this. So yeah, very straightforward. Just do this. Sub out of Manaphy. As you can see, base 20, but after attacking, you have an option right here. So if I do this, if I only discard 1, I'm doing 60 damage. Discard 2, 100. Discard 3, 140. Just like that. Yeah. So a ton of fun, and you can get a ton of value with Gyarados. The only issue is that towards the late game, I feel like you will kind of brick. We shall see in this video. I get it. Mind you, this deck did tie 4 times in a tournament. And against Suicune Greninja, which is notorious for chipping the bench. And yeah, with that being said, we'll see how this deck performs in PvP. All right, here we are in PvP battle, going second. Okay. We got Mantike out. All we need now is Gyarados. But we do need a Lucia, because looking at our hand, 2 Gyarados, 2 Gyaradoses. Pretty good, but I mean, I would much prefer to have basics in my bench. Make sure to Lucia first, because keep in mind, Lucia only works against 50 HP Pokemon or less. So if you do Pokeball here, we have a higher chance to pull Suicune EX. Of course we don't, because yeah. But we did get, okay, that's pretty good though. We did get Magikarp. We really needed that. So at this point, just kind of lead like this. Feed, splashy toss. Perfect. Okay, so we're going against a Mega Blaziken EX deck. This deck is super fast paced, so we essentially have to outspeed this guy. Interesting, opponent X speeds, subs in Heat more. This is rather scary, because next turn my opponent can still start attacking with Mega Blaziken EX, keep in mind, with Flame Patch, Rare Candy, and if my opponent, of course, has Mega Blaziken in their hand. Targeting Magikarp, pretty scary, but look at this. Okay, could be better, but we can definitely cook with this. So just do this. Retreat, Gyarados. And this is where you have to play this rather cautiously. At this point, might as well feed Gyarados again, just in case I have to retreat. So I Wild Swing, base damage, I'm doing 40. So you don't want to overkill your opponent given this, because yeah, keep in mind, you only have a certain amount of basic cards in your deck, of course, and you want to be kind of conservative with that. So at this point, in order to kill Heatmore, all I really need is to sacrifice 1 either Mantike or Manaphy. At this point, why not? I'll do one of the Mantikes, yeah. So I just do that, and just like that, doing exactly 80 damage. Perfect. So yeah, as you can see, very fast paced, but we might just lose right now. There's a high chance, especially... Actually, never mind, okay. Opponent can't evolve into Mega Blaziken, get a pretty bad hand, but if they had Rare Candy and the Mega in their hand, then can do flat 140. Perfect. Okay, so at this point, we can might as well start building our second copy of Gyarados. So yeah, very straightforward. Rocky Helmet, this Magikarp, and then Wild Swing. And then keep in mind, again, all I need to sacrifice is one Pokemon. I'm doing base 40 damage, so sure, sacrificing Manaphy. So if you like sacrificing Pokemon, this is the deck for you. You're essentially using them as ammunition, and it's very satisfying. Opponent copycats as a last-ditch effort, but he needs to pull Rare Candy as well as Mega Blaziken, which is very unlikely looking at their hand. Okay, concedes. Yeah, so a ton of fun. I feel like there is Suicune EX, sure, but you can very much just lead this fully with just using non-EX Pokemon. And I don't know about you guys, but just using non-EXs does feel somewhat rewarding. You can play it rather slow, but also very fast at the same time. For our next battle, going second yet again, which is amazing, especially if you are leading with Manaphy. All right, hand could definitely be a lot better, but we can definitely work with this. So my opponent is using Mega Steelix. That deck is rather slow, especially with the build-up. So next turn, we are doing a base 100 damage. At this point, just to play it safe, I'm gonna Giant Cape this Manaphy. Because if my opponent does Brock yet again and feeds Onyx, Onyx does 50 damage, one-shotting Manaphy. Rocky Helmet, Oceanic Gift, feeding Manaphy in the bench, as well as Magikarp. This doesn't look that good, but at the same time, if my opponent does try to Sabrina just to mess me up, I could just sub in this Manaphy and then get a free retreat essentially next turn. Nice, and we got Suicune as well. You love to see this because we're going to sacrifice this Suicune right here, subbing into Gyarados. Just like that. Our second turn, doing 140 damage. So yeah, this insane burst damage, which is why this deck is better towards the early game to middle game, and then late game, that's where you will struggle. But so sacrificing my whole team, yeah, I don't need you guys. This Gyarados is superior. Debatably the most fun, I don't know if the best, but the most fun. Actually, I'm just gonna say it. Why not? This is the best Gyarados out there currently in the meta, and also the most fun. Yeah, because 140 damage your second turn, that's insane. Whereas the other Gyarados, other Gyarados, each of them do 140 damage, but they require a ton of buildup. Our next battle, going first, somewhat promising. All we need now is a Magikarp. Either Magikarp or Suicune, leading with Mantike. Oh gosh, dude, opponent is using a Cottony deck. Their second turn, they can potentially one-shot all my Pokemon, so please, Professor, give me something aside from... Okay. This is interesting, but we can still work with this. Why not? This is the one issue with this deck, is that RNG does exist, which I mean, you could say for most decks, but yeah, ideally for your first turn, you want to have either Magikarp or Suicune EX on the field, and if you can't get that, then you will run into some issues, especially with how consistent this deck that my opponent is using. But okay, opponent has one more card in their hand. But they have still a very high chance to evolve at least one of their Pokemon. Yeah, this is rough, man. All I could really do is... might as well stall. That's all I could really do. The stall, feed Manaphy yet again, sure. Please, all I need is a Magikarp and I'm set. Why is it so hard, man? I have Lucia. If I pull Lucia, I'm essentially guaranteed a Magikarp. Oh gosh, yeah, I'm screwed. This freaking Cottonweed Pokemon is about to just demolish my everything. Yeah. And if you guys are curious, I did publish a Whimsicott EX deck showcase on my channel. 10 cards, all shite pulled so far. Okay. Gosh, I have to take a gamble this turn. At this point, might as well just... Sure. Giant Cape, Rocky Helmet. I have to use Copycat, because it's going to be very hard to win if I don't. I mean, even then, looking at this, not good. So this is a huge gamble right here. I essentially have like a, what, 1 out of 13 chance. Of course, I don't pull it. Sure. So yeah, you might run into this issue. This could happen. And at this point, I mean, again, I can lead this rather slow, but at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, playing this deck towards the middle, like late middle and also late game, you will struggle, and we're kind of approaching that. Opponent Sabrina's, sure, sub in Mantike. This guy's on the verge of death. Alright, so we're just playing it like this, I guess. Gyarados, or Magikarp specifically, this doesn't want to get out. This is the issue with this deck, and even if I did get Gyarados out, for one thing, Gyarados won't be one-shot of Whimsicott EX, and Whimsicott EX will be doing 160 damage onto Gyarados, because, yeah, keep in mind this guy, the damage for this guy does scale based on how much retreat cost my Pokemon have, and Gyarados has a retreat cost of 3, so yeah, if you do the math, plus the Gyarados buff, doing 160, so we are screwed, man. And even onto the Suicune, how much is Whimsicott doing? Whimsicott EX is doing 130, if they get another Gyarados out, doing 160, so yeah, there's really no winning this scenario. Just gonna fast forward to my inevitable defeat. Hey, look at that, dude. We got a Pokeball. Finally getting Magikarp out. Yes, I swear if I got a Suicune, then perfect. But at this point, can't do anything. So attacking with Suicune, sure. And GG. Yeah, this battle could have been drastically different, especially if I got better RNG. This is where RNG really plays a crucial role in the game, as you can see. Because let's say like I got the best hand and my opponent somehow can't get like Whimsicott or even Spinarak out, then yeah, I would have won. Next battle, Magikarp is finally coming out, but we are going first and leading with Manaphy. So this is not ideal. We are, however, going up against a Mega Charizard Y. So we could definitely work with this, especially if we're just purely leading with non-EX, not getting Suicune EX out on the field. This deck is running one copy of Puke. I'm going to save this giant cape for... Actually, I might as well just do it right now. We are running one copy of Puke. I can't say this name. Pyukumuku? Yeah. Primarily just to prick my opponent's Pokemon, because yeah, after getting knocked out, this Pokemon does 50 damage to my opponent's active Pokemon. And if that's Mega Charizard Y, Mega Charizard Y is taking 120 damage just from attacking. Mega Charizard Y is taking 100 damage just purely from attacking. So at this point, might as well play super aggressive. Opponent does place down Ho, feeds Charmander. My opponent really cannot compete at this point. That's what I would have said if we did go second, but unfortunately, we did not. At this point, I might as well just do this. Just Oceanic Gift, feeding Gyarados, and Puke. Interesting, okay, so opponent's using Ho-Oh. Is this gonna work? So Ho can use the support, giving Fire, Water, and Lightning. Also doing 80 damage, which is pretty unfortunate. So feeding this Charmander, okay. Alright, at this point, placing down Suicune EX, I'm gonna attack. Not able to one-shot Ho-Oh, so at this point, I'm just gonna sacrifice one Pokemon and then two Pokemon next turn. Yes, this is where you have to play very cautiously because again, keep in mind, I'm doing 140 damage. Ho will be left at 10 HP. Next turn, I can do 100 damage, sacrificing two Pokemon at least. All right, this is a mess. What is going on, man? This guy has the freaking Egyptian gods out. Ho, Lugia, and then Mega Charizard Y. I'm assuming Ho will feed Lugia, and it does look rather... Actually, okay, no, just subbing into Mega Charizard Y. Interesting. Oh, crap, man. Okay. Damn. Okay, interesting battle, to say the least. So, yeah, Charizard will be one-shotting. This guy pulled freaking everything he needed, man. This guy got, like, the God Hand, pulled everything, and at this point, I am basically screwed. My opponent has 2 points. I have nothing. So, you know what? I'll give it to him. Props to this guy using a very unconventional deck, but made it work. Mega Charizard Y, Ho, Lugia, amazing. Somehow working. Yeah, GG. At this point, nothing I can really do makes a difference. This is why, again, this deck has a very good early to mid-game prominence, but if your opponent can start building up, then of course you will struggle. I'm gonna do one more battle after this, because, yeah, this really came out of nowhere. I wasn't really expecting this guy to win. Yeah, GG. That was, I can't be too mad with that, because, I mean, yeah, props to Blue. This guy is the real Blue. This is Blue from an alternate universe if he was the main character instead of Red. All right, last battle, going first. What is this hand? We might as well just leave with Puke at this point. All right, starting hand is not the worst. We can get Gyarados out our next turn, but it will take us a couple more turns to build him up. This is not that bad. So next turn, if my opponent does knock out Puke, for one thing, they're taking 50 damage, and then we can start attacking with Gyarados. Hold up, opponent does Clemont, which could be an issue, but I think it should be fine. I mean, nevertheless, after getting knocked out, Puke will be doing 50 damage, so we can definitely just chill like this for now. And we do have a Magikarp in our hand, so in a couple of turns, we could potentially start building up our second copy of Gyarados. So at this point, my opponent is just feeding the Magnetons. All right, this should be good as long as my opponent doesn't use Red Card or Mars. So at this point, I might as well do a bit of damage with Puke. Should be dying next turn. Opponent potentially can get 2 Magnezones out next turn, as Oricorio as well. But we have, look at our hand, man. We have ammunition. We have our whole team in our bench waiting to be sacrificed. Look at this. Look at this Manaphy, this innocent Manaphy. Little does she know she's going to end up right in the discard pile. Opponent Oricorios, Elemental switches. Are they going to take out? Okay. This is actually going to help us out tremendously because Oricorio is going to be left at 20 HP, which means I don't have to sacrifice a Pokemon because keep in mind Gyarados does 20 base damage. So at this point, feed Gyarados, Rocky Helmet, and yeah, at this point, we're just chilling like this. Just, yep, swing, sure. Everybody stays alive. Okay, perfect. And I feel like that's why this deck is running one copy of Puke, because depending on the scenario, just like that, you can one-shot Oricorio just by doing that. Just playing Puke, opponent knocks out Puke, Gyarados is being chill, just not eating any of its children, and perfect. Just like that, opponent getting rather unlucky, holy crap. All right, finally evolving into Magnezone, 110 damage. Looks rather scary, and then keep in mind next turn, if I do attack, I have a 50% chance of doing nothing, which is why Sabrina's here. So we can easily bypass this by using Sabrina. Actually, never mind, doesn't matter, but it does kind of disrupt him a little bit. Yeah, so 50% chance, please. Okay, perfect. All right, so at this point, all we really need to do is sacrifice one Pokemon because 40 plus 20 is 60. And looking at the board, Magneton has 60 HP. So, yeah. Gotta make sure sacrificing Manaphy. All right, perfect. And this is where RNG does play a factor, which is kind of actually, I think it should be said depending on my opponent does play more cards. Does Copycat, okay. So that could also help us out in the long run because we have 2 cards. One of them is a Gyarados, and we need to evolve this guy using that said Gyarados. You get the Rayquazas. They wanted to show up. Why not? I thought I was going against like just a pure Magnezone or Oricorio deck, but little did I know, Rayquaza was just chilling just in the deck for some reason. And just like that, we do get Gyarados. Amazing. Okay, so yeah, evolving. At this point, place down everyone that we need. Might as well play like this. And at this point, screw it. I'm going to sacrifice 2 Pokemon. Yeah, let's chill like this. I probably should have placed the Suicune Ex because I could easily lose if my opponent pulls a Sabrina. If they're running Sabrina, it might be GG. But please, man. This game is oddly just intense. Opponent's slowly building up Rayquaza as well. This is happening. Yeah, we both have 2 points. This guy is chill. He's a chill Snorlax, as you can see. And here we go. Our opponent just flat out attacks. So it ultimately comes down to this final coin flip. What is going on? Opponent has 2 points. I have 2 points as well. Magnezone. This Gyarados, oddly enough, the best, or at least most fun Gyarados card there is in the game. Might as well feed Suicune. Copycat just for a little bit of good luck. Actually, I cannot Copycat. Never mind. She's just gonna watch me. Yeah, here we go. Wild Swing. 20 base damage. And we either win or lose, depending on this coin flip. Okay, GG. Does nothing. Oh, gosh, dude. Yeah, this card is a lot of fun, but does require a bit of build-up, especially towards the late game. As you can see, we are in the late game, so it is struggling. Again, this deck does perform a lot better towards the early to mid game, getting a huge lead against your opponent, doing potentially 120 damage your second turn. Opponent does knock out Gyarados, and Magnezone survives at 10 HP, man. This feels like an anime duel. Holy crap. But yeah, that's essentially Gyarados in a nutshell. And yeah, that's a non-EX Gyarados deck showcase. Overall, very fun if you get a good starting hand. If you don't get a good starting hand, and depending on the deck that your opponent's using, you might run into some issues, especially if you're going against like Magnezone or Oricorio. Magnezone stocks continue to increase. And with that being said, yeah, this deck, it feels oddly reminiscent of Golurk. I'm just gonna pull it up right here for reference. This Golurk card right here, in which the damage is kind of variable. It does depending on what cards you pull. I did make a deck showcase using this guy. I'll put it in the description if I do remember, but overall a ton of fun. You could potentially do 180 damage using Golurk. And yeah, this deck is somewhat similar in regards to that Gyarados' max damage. Depends on how many Pokemon you have, of course, in your bench. And depending on the state of the game, depending on your RNG, it might be hard for you to do max damage, but nevertheless, sacrificing one Pokemon, doing 60 to 100. So I mean, if you can sacrifice 2 Pokemon doing 100 damage your second turn, feels reminiscent to Silvally. I mean, yeah, so yeah, with that being said, overall, I'd rate this deck A- to B+, around there. I mean, it did get to 5th place in a tournament, but keep in mind, it does require a bit of RNG. I mean, Mega Gyarados EX did win a tournament before in the past, and yeah, with that being said, anything can happen in tournaments, and in turn in PvP as well as in rank. So yeah, overall, still a rather fun deck. In my opinion, the most fun deck. If you want to use a Gyarados card, yeah, I feel like you get the most enjoyment with this, because looking at the other ones requires a bit of build-up. You might be forced to run Misty as well, and Misty is rather inconsistent. But yeah, that's the showcase. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. Really does help me out, especially as a small-time content creator. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.